Hello and welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you are listening to episode number 98, brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear. Today I'm joined by my good friend and hunting buddy, Wilson McSwain, and we're covering a lot of ground today in this one, everything from Alaska moose and bear to PA whitetails. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. I hope everyone's doing well out there. Hope everyone, I guess most seasons here are winding to a close. PA here for the gun season just ended. I did get out and do just a little bit of hunting during the gun season with my bow. Now that I've been educated by one Johnny Utah, who doesn't even live in Pennsylvania. For all my life, I thought I couldn't hunt with a bow during rifle season for whatever reason, or maybe it was just mentally I was preferring to not go out. But I did pick up the bow, headed out. I did see a couple young deer, a couple young bucks, nothing that was shooter worthy. So we're on to the official late season, or the second archery season, which will kick in on December 26th, I guess, is when it'll kick back in. So I'll be kind of taking a pause until then and kind of regathering my wits and then trying to figure out what I'm going to do to make a late season push. I think this swamp is kind of dead that I've been hunting. I know you guys have been those of you who've been following along. I was hunting this swamp and there was good deer in there. They kind of disappeared over the course of rut. Of course, I was gone during rut in Ohio, but did do a camera pull this past week whenever I did get back in there. And I guess the mature deer last showed up, I think it was the 23rd or the 24th of October. I got zero inventory of mature bucks during the course of rut, which was interesting because there's does that are in there. And then I just did a camera pull this past weekend whenever I was hunting it on the last day of the PA gun season. And there was only one mature deer that showed back up, and that was on, I want to say, November 23rd. So it doesn't look like this is going to be an area for late season. Of course, there's not a ton of food in there. I don't really have any setups that are going to be close to food. So I kind of have to rethink my strategy, at least for around here. There is the opportunity to head back to my dad's property and do some hunting because there really wasn't much hunting that happened there this year. I hunted a couple days before I left for Ohio. He hunted one day during the gun opener. And we, of course, have a food plot there. So that's kind of what I'm thinking I might try to do, is head back there after second season comes in and see if I can't get close to that food plot and hopefully get an opportunity at one of the nicer deer that are on the property. I mentioned this to Wilson as we were recording this podcast you're about to listen to, that it seems as though that for whatever reason, even though we don't have a lot of pressure on that property, it seems like the deer just kind of disappear during gun season and then don't show back up really until late spring, early summer. On this property particularly. So at least that's what the cameras told me last year. I'll still try to give it a hunt and see what happens and hopefully I can make something happen. But what the cameras were telling me from last year, I don't have a whole lot of, my hopes aren't super high. So, we'll still give it a try. And I got a couple doe tags yet to fill around here, do a little bit of urban hunting, around the Bucks County area where I live. See if I can't put a little bit more meat in the freezer before things are kind of awash, and then, it'll be on to duck and goose hunting. But without further ado, I have a good buddy Wilson on today. I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard me talk about him, especially whenever I took my buddy Trevor out for his first hunt last spring, turkey hunting. Wilson was my buddy who I went with, who kind of made that happen. I do a fair bit of hunting with Wilson. We do a fair bit of hanging out. We typically hunt late season a good bit together, and then we do get into some goose and duck hunting after we're kind of done with deer hunting. But Wilson's just a cool dude. We talk about how we kind of ran into each other, which was, just out of the blue, running into each other at a trade show, and we just realized that we live really close together, so we should probably start hanging out and shooting bows together and stuff like that. But Wilson's a cool guy. He's relatively newer to hunting. He's been hunting for a handful of years. He came from the West Coast. And really just he's one of those dudes, and I mentioned this when we were talking, it's for a dude who's been hunting for as briefly as he has in comparison to, a lot of other folks you might hear on this podcast, or John or myself or whatever. I'm hard-pressed to find a guy who is more ate up with it or picks stuff up more quickly than he does. his ability to kind of learn things, apply them, and then be successful is pretty astonishing. He's had a lot of success, in the recent past, and we're going to talk about some of those hunts. But before we jump into all that, I'd like to take a quick second to talk about our partners to continue to help us make this podcast possible. First and foremost, we are brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear, the longest lasting, fastest cutting, toughest tree trimming equipment you have ever used. Simply put, the toughest saws on earth. How tough are they? Tough enough to come with a lifetime warranty. And right now, when you visit wickedtreegear.com, use the promo code TRUTH at checkout and save yourself 20% on your Wicked purchase. This would make a dandy stocking stuffer in the form of a handsaw, or even just something under the tree with one of the pool saws. So go ahead and check that out. Use that discount code and get a little Christmas shopping done. We're also brought to you by Exodus Outdoor Gear. The Trek comes in at a $145 price point. The Trek camera has the same proprietary shell design as the Lift series camera, same 5-year warranty and unmatched customer service. Photo, video, time-lapse, and hybrid modes, all with a simple single-line backlit LED display. You also get about 20,000 images on one set of lithium batteries. And if you'd like to learn more about these cameras, head over to ExodusOutdoorGear.com and check them out. And if you like what you see, you can save yourself $20 by using the promo code TRUTH at checkout. We're also brought to you by Glacier Coolers, simply the world's finest. Whether you're hunting, camping, or fishing, you'll enjoy smarter design, stronger construction, and superior insulation of Glacier Coolers. Visit them at glaciercoolers.com. Promo code TRUTH at checkout and save yourself 20%. These make killer Christmas presents, so make sure to use that code. We're also brought to you by Tecumani Seed. They have these pounder versions of seed that would make great stocking stuffers here as well. I think just about every product that they have, for the most part, comes in a pounder version. So sling a couple of those into some folks' stocking. So no matter if you're in the South, Midwest, or Northeast, Tecumani Seed has your food plot needs covered. Visit them at tecumani.com. Check out their product selector tool. They'll help you pick the right product for your food plot needs. Use promo code TRUTH at checkout and save yourself 20%. And now let's go ahead and get Mr. Wilson McSwain on the line. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. Today, I have my buddy with me who I've tried to have on for, I don't even know, probably like a year. Tried to have you on and off. You guys have heard of him. I've mentioned him many times on the show. He's a buddy of mine that I hunt a good bit with. We hunt turkeys together. I fail every time. He seems to kill them when I'm not around. He took me goose hunting for the first time and introduced me to that, which now has kind of turned into like a semi-obsession during the late season. I actually started thinking of goose hunting while I was in a tree during the rut. Like, it's almost kind of wrong a little bit. But he is none other than Wilson McSwain. What's going on, brother?
Not much. It's good to be here. It's exciting.
Good to be here. Good to be in hot toddy land.
Yeah. Yep. It's freezing cold outside, so we got warm hot tea. And
you got a cute snowman on your mug, too.
I got probably the cutest mug in your whole...
it's actually my daughter's mug. I gave it to you on purpose.
I'm not allowed to say cute. My wife is going to go, don't talk like that.
Don't talk like that.
Yeah.
You sound... Why aren't you allowed to say the word cute?
I don't know. It's not manly, I guess. I don't know. Maybe. Oh, man. I'm breaking... I'm not allowed to say that either. Cute is manly, and you guys can say cute. It's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. We're trying to be gender neutral and what is that, like
correct?
Yeah, politically correct and keep the peace at home.
No, but it's good to be here. I've had a busy schedule. You've had a busy schedule, so it's finally good to clear some time and.
Yeah, clear some time, man. You had a busy day. Like, you just ran through your day, and it started with deer hunting this morning.
Yeah, hunting from 6 a.m. to noon. We killed 4 deer, and then I ran and picked up my son, met the in-laws, went and got their tree, dropped my son off at home, kissed my wife, and then went back out and hunted, and then drove here. So. And
then we cut some arrows.
We cut arrows.
We had some pizza, which had eggs in, which you're allergic to.
I'm allergic to eggs, and you're trying to kill me. We shot our bows, and now we're here.
And now we're here doing a little podcast. So, I guess, man, first let's start off with how, let me back up for a second. So, the folks who listen to the podcast, there's all these friends that I do stuff with that they may or may not have ever seen, heard from, or whatever. You're definitely one of them. My other one I've talked about in the past is my buddy Luke Scheimer out in Montana, who I've hunted with, which he's never been on the show, but I mention him every so often. And it's always like interesting how you meet people, right? Because when I moved here to Philadelphia, I didn't know a single soul that hunted, really.
Was, other than Phil, who, Phil was a buddy of mine I originally started the podcast with back in the day. And you and I never met ever.
Nope.
And do you remember how we ran into each other?
Yeah. I think it was my first year of living in Pennsylvania. I'm from Seattle.
That's right. Yep.
So I moved here. I knew people who hunted, definitely a lot of people who gun hunted in our area. And everyone told me about this big outdoor show. Mm-hmm. And I'd never been to an outdoor show. I didn't know about an outdoor show. So I got in my car, bought a ticket, and drove out, and my mind was blown at the Pennsylvania, it's a Harrisburg outdoor show.
Yeah, Great American Outdoor Show.
And I was buying a saw. It was like this guy was selling the world's lightest, most great, amazing saw you've ever seen.
Yeah, what was that guy's name?
I can't remember. He's got a beard and
might that been Johnny Utah?
Yes, it was. The guy said, "Oh, this is Johnny Utah." And again, this is my first year hunting. I don't know anyone in the hunting industry, or I didn't know there was people in the hunting industry. I just thought it was. I didn't know much about it.
Dudes just go out and hunt. Yeah.
He goes, "You don't know Johnny Utah?" And I said, "No, I don't. I don't know you. I don't know Johnny Utah. But I want to buy the saw because it was awesome." And I ended up meeting John, and this guy comes up and starts asking John questions, and then that was you.
Yep.
And then we started talking about making arrows and public land, and you were talking about hunting in this saddle, in the terrain, and I didn't even know what that meant.
Right.
So, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember walking up and talking to John, because John was someone who I knew of. I didn't know John at that time. We may have, I think, maybe traded some social media messages back and forth at that point. And I was really kind of starting to come up to John, kind of wanted to talk to him about coming on and being a guest on the show, but also thinking about maybe, him being on the show more often as a co-host, which, as fate would have it, it's kind of how it worked out.
Yeah.
And you're standing there, and John, of course, at these shows is crazy busy because he's selling all kinds of products and stuff.
Yeah.
And so you and I just kind of got to talking, and then, of course, I kind of figured you were from Pennsylvania because we're in PA or at the Harrisburg Outdoor Show,
It's so that's center of the state, so.
Right, yeah. So there's a good chance you're from PA. I know buddies of mine come down from New York and stuff like that, and it's, there's plenty of people that travel to come to that show. But we start talking, and we mentioned that we were both from PA, and you'd mentioned that you were just moved here, and I was like, "Oh, where'd you move to?" And you told me where you moved to, and I was like, "Dude, we basically live right next to each other." And I was like, "Sweet, I found someone else who likes to hunt that lives near me," because at that point, Phil was literally the only person I knew in this area that hunted. I didn't have a hunting buddy around here or anything like that. So, but it was interesting, man, because I don't know. I've told many people, that in talking to them, that heard me talk about you, sing your praises as to how you just kind of dove in, man. I was like, there's not many people that I've met that are as ate up with hunting, and not just you love deer hunting, and that's kind of of course, what you and I are super passionate about, but you will go literally hunt anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's you just like to be in the timber.
Yeah, I like to be outside. I grew up in Seattle, but we lived in a small neighborhood, but my parents did the best job of, we didn't go on big, great vacations. We just went camping. Started in a tent, got a pop-up, then we made it in the world. We bought a motorhome.
Right.
And drove across the country, but we spent all our vacation outdoors, and hunting was something I always thought was something I would never be able to do, but I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of always this dream that was just outside of my reach, because we grew up, not too far outside of the city. There was no hunting. If you saw a deer, it was oh my goodness. It was either dead on the side of the road or you were in the zoo.
Right.
So it was a rarity. And moving to Pennsylvania definitely changed things. I don't know if you want me to go into that, but
yeah.
I started dating my now wife and came and visited her in Pennsylvania, and first thing my father-in-law was like, "Let's go sight in some rifles." And I was like, I don't know what that means. So so we go to this farm basically in someone's backyard, and all these guys are pulling out guns, and I was like, what is happening? We shoot these rifles, sight them in, and it was great. So we get married, and my father-in-law bought me a shotgun for a wedding gift. And my dad never bought me a gun. And I always think it was because he was worried I would shoot myself on accident.
Right.
And I always joked that my father-in-law bought me a gun so that I would shoot myself.
Right.
But no, he got me a shotgun. We were living in Seattle at the time, and I just said, what can I hunt?
Right.
And so I took a hunter safety course with my buddy and started shooting clays and found out there's lots of ducks in Washington. So we started hunting ducks. The first time I went duck hunting, I just had a pair of camo denim pants and a camo jacket and a duck call in my pocket. And we ended up killing 3 ducks. And I knew from the moment I shot that duck, we took it home, we tried to figure out how to get the meat off. I cooked it and we ate it. It was like, I want to do this more.
It was a good day.
Yep. So I started networking, finding people who duck hunted, getting connected, and then ended up duck hunting a lot.
Right. And then fast forward, you're in PA, and then it just becomes like, abundant game of a bunch of different varieties.
Yep. We took a trip here for Christmas, and my father-in-law took me out, and I shot a deer with a gun, and we butchered that, and I ate it, and it was like, I can get meat and bring it to my house, and I can kill something, bring it to my house and eat it, and not only just eat it but fully enjoy it. I wanted to do more.
Right.
And it was exciting to me, this unknown of finally having this dream that was tangible,
right,
and being able to do it.
It's funny that you mentioned that you thought it was just maybe out of reach, because that's also what, for all of you out there listening, if you've not heard some of the previous podcasts where I was able to introduce a buddy of mine, Trevor, to hunting. Wilson is the person who helped me do that.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting that you say that you thought that was just possibly out of your reach, because that's exactly what Trevor said.
Yep.
And that he was kind of like blown away that 2 dudes, one of which didn't know him at all, which was you.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, why don't you come out to my house, shoot some guns, teach you how to shoot a turkey, where you want to aim, teach you how we'll try to what the process is like and how we'll try to make this happen. Which is kind of cool because, you're a pretty thoughtful dude, and I would imagine you probably thought of that as we were going through that, which was like, here's a guy that has this idea that he would like to do something, doesn't really have anyone to show him. Yeah. I also was in that situation. Let me help be the one who kind of gets him introduced into the woods, because your work too is very giving. That's what you do for a living. You know what I mean? So it's you always have people's best interests in mind, which is, another reason why I like to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Keeps my negativity on the on the even keel.
Oh man. Glass half with water in it.
Half with water in it. Yeah.
When I started, I didn't know anyone that hunted. That I knew of.
Right.
Now come to see down the road, I actually did know a bunch of people that hunted, but since it wasn't something I was doing, I was not connected with them.
Yeah.
And so we did it all ourselves, the hunter safety, the finding some public land to go duck hunting on. Someone told us that people were going to show up early. Should we get there at midnight, sleep in our cars to get a spot? And ended up actually someone shot across the water. And the first time out, I got peppered with a duck load.
You never told me that.
Yeah. I'm sitting there. We didn't have any decoys, and a duck landed on the water that we never saw, and I didn't know if you could shoot a duck off the water. So we're trying to wait for it to fly, and this guy was across the pond, maybe 70 yards, and he shoots this duck off the water, and the pellets kind of ricochet up and hit my coat, actually ripped my coat on the one side. I stand up, I'm like, hey, I'm over here. And I was like, maybe I don't want to hunt. Maybe this is terrible.
Maybe this is a bad idea.
Ended up, but we didn't have anyone to show us the way. And so now it's one of the biggest blessings in hunting for me is being able to bring someone into that, to say, you know what, I know what you're going through. I don't have all the answers, but I can help you get started.
Right.
So I've gotten to see, I got to take my mom hunting, see my mom shoot her very first deer.
Yeah, because she killed a deer last year, right?
Yeah, she's killed 2 deer. She was just left last week, and she wanted to kill a buck, and she didn't kill a buck this time, but she shot 2 deer now. Got to take my wife hunting for the first time. She killed a nice buck on her second sit ever after 45 minutes.
Yeah. How does that make you feel?
That was great. She said, hunting is so easy. Why do you do it so much? But yeah, I got to take my other buddy. We got duck hunting together, and there's been quite a few guys now that I've gotten to get out into the woods and just get exposed.
Right.
And then you kind of let the boat sail and let them take it to where they want. But man, I love getting people in the woods.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. Well, like I mentioned, I'm looking forward to waterfowl season coming back in. I just really like that time of year because I think, partially it's just there's no pressure.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, I know you and I grind pretty hard during deer season trying to get after it. And it's, as everyone out there listening does too, it's like it's not like we're doing anything different than a lot of guys do. But when duck season comes in and deer season's finally done, it's like, it's that type of hunting. Like, I enjoy and love deer hunting, but there's also a little part of me when it's just ends where I'm like, whew, all right, you get to take a breath for a second. That lasts probably all of like 2 weeks, and then I'm like, I can't wait for deer season to come back in.
Yep.
But hunting waterfowl is a nice break. And Trevor wants to hunt. Like, he's been asking me. Well, I haven't talked to him in probably like a month or two, but every time we talk, he asks about duck hunting and when that comes in, and are we going to do that this year? And so we definitely have to get him out because he's itching to get back in the woods, which is cool. As you said, you just kind of give them a little bit of leash and let them kind of take off.
Yeah, people need to help building a foundation, and I think once they have their foundation, it's good to have them do what they want with it, because some people are just going to want to get out on a weekend and hunt, or go up to the mountains and try to rifle hunt or whatever it might be, to let them develop that platform, but have their foundation and platform be a solid one. Yeah. And one of like respecting animals, respecting the woods, and being like a woodsman, not just being out there to just whack an animal, Right. But to give them that solid foundation of, man, this is why we do it, and now you take it where you want. Because not everyone has to be like me or you, where we're
obsessed
doing things that you're like, man, that's just doesn't seem normal. You're like, I gotta kill this deer, and not everyone has to be like that, and that's okay. Yep. And I think I would feel bad if I was putting off that vibe, like, you have to hunt like this, because you don't. Like, but as long as you have this foundation of respect and
have an understanding of what it's all about. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's to me, that's the most important thing, is just to make sure someone walks away with understanding, the ethical side of it, why it's important, the respect aspect of it, the deep heritage, especially, Pennsylvania, most whitetail states have some type of heritage, whether it's like deer camps or, or Michigan, you have the buck poles or the deer poles or whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, as long as they have an understanding of those things, and then they can kind of take it from there and do with it whatever it is they're going to do. It's not like they have to be in the timber. If they only go out one weekend a year, then awesome. You know what I mean? Like, if that's their goal, then so be it. You know what I mean? It's better that than not going out at all. I guess is kind of how I look at it. But
before we continue our conversation, let's talk about Wicked Tree Gear saws. Hardcore deer hunters need hardcore tools. Do yourself a favor and check out Wicked Tree Gear, the toughest hand saws and pull saws on earth. You buy it once, you buy it for life, backed by a lifetime guarantee. Right now, if you use the promo code TRUTH, you'll save 20% on your next purchase with free ground shipping. So head over to wickedtreegear.com and get a saw that's tough enough to work as hard as you hunt.
I want to shift gears here, man, real quick, and talk just a little bit about hot toddies and how they're life changing. So we're as you guys are listening to this, well, not as you're listening to it, because this is pre-recorded, of course, but we are currently enjoying a hot toddy, and this is Wilson's first hot toddy. How you liking it so far?
It's good. Both my kids are at home with a cold, and my wife's getting a little sick, and I was literally outside all day today. I think it was 18 degrees this morning. Yeah,
it was 25 when I got back to the truck after the hunt this afternoon.
It was a cold day, so it's a good hot tea, warm you up.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So if anyone out there listening, my recipe is some type of Earl Grey-ish tea. I know diddly squat about tea. I'll be the first one to mention it.
It's got leaves. It's in a bag.
It's got leaves. It smells kind of herbal. And then this one particularly has some Hudson bourbon in it, some Hudson baby bourbon. That's from Hudson Valley Distillery in New York, which is a small batch, a little craft distillery. It's not so little anymore. At one point it was. And 2 squeezes of lemon and
a whole lot of honey.
A whole lot of honey because we lax the honey. I don't know, man. I really never. So bartending for the longest time that I did as I was finishing school and in a band and stuff like that, I used to make a lot of hot toddies.
Okay.
Never drank them for whatever reason. I never really. Megan, when she would get sick, she would always ask me to make them because I bartended. I could make a pretty good hot toddy, so I'd make one for her. And whenever I would get sick, she's like, "Why don't you have a hot toddy?" I'm like, "Nah, I don't know. I don't really want a hot toddy because I hate tea. Like I don't like tea." And so I just assumed it would kind of taste like tea, and I didn't want it. And so my first hot toddy was literally like 2 weeks ago, where I was like, "Yeah, I'll try one."
Oh, for real?
Oh yeah.
You're talking like you've been drinking them your whole life.
Well, I have
was
been
deceived.
just not hot toddies.
Oh.
No,
I think I don't want to lead you astray. I think at one point I might have had one. I was super sick when I was visiting Pennsylvania once, and I think my mother-in-law was like, "You should get a hot toddy," and
Right.
it just didn't. It was weird. I was like, it doesn't sound right. It just doesn't seem like I should. I cannot remember if I had one or not. But anyways, it wasn't life changing.
right.
This one's life changing.
This was life changing. Yeah, it's weird. Like and now we're getting off on a tangent on hot toddies. Like this turned into the hot toddy podcast. The
Oh man.
like I don't know. I really like them. For me, a hot toddy, getting a cold now has just become an excuse to have a hot toddy. It's like if I feel even slightly.
I refuse to get sick. If you ask my wife, she kind of gets sick of it, but I will not get sick. If I'm sick, if I ever get sick, I still will not admit it. It's like this piece of me that says mentally, if you admit you're sick, your body just takes over. And I could be sick as a dog, and I will go, I'm not sick. And I won't take days off. I'll contaminate everybody in the office because I'm like, I'm not sick. I'm not going home. I'm not weak.
So me, on the other hand, I'm like, man, I'm sick. I'm staying home today. Like, it's like,
Oh, man.
like can't come in.
Yeah, growing up, it was like that. Every one day a week, I was like, I'm sick. I got to stay home from school. But
Those are the days I have to stay off of Instagram because I was sick, but I was also in a tree.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, why weren't you at work today? Oh, I was sick. I got a little more sick because I was in 18-degree weather on the side of a tree on the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
But that's what they make sick days for.
Yep.
But speaking of hunting, being on mountains, man, I want to dive into a little bit of what you've been up to. Because we'll get into deer hunting, man. But we were talking just earlier when we were upstairs eating about we're having this bougie party that we invited you and your missus to.
Yeah.
For this, it's a wine. I'll just tell everyone what it is. It's a wine tasting that we're doing with this local winery, and it's I forget what the name of it is. I think it might be called One Hope Wine. I think is what it's called. So we'll just give them a plug because they're kind of cool. But what they do is like you do a wine party with them, and then whatever people buy during that wine party, they come in and do a tasting, provide a bunch of wine, and whatever people buy from that party, they basically then take a portion of the proceeds. I forget what percent it is, and then they allow you, the party host, to decide what nonprofit or some type of charitable organization you'd like to donate a percentage of the sales to or whatever.
Yeah.
So for us, it's like we're donating it to a conservation organization, and so we decided to do a wine tasting and a wild game tasting. So we were upstairs talking about, because I've got some venison, I've got some duck, I've got some goose. We'll of course slay a few more geese and stuff before the party.
Yeah, for sure.
But you gave me a bunch of moose meat.
Yeah.
That I made some soup out of, and ate some just moose meat straight, but also made a vegetable soup out of it that was like the best stinking meat that I think I may have ever eaten. Like I like elk meat.
Yeah.
Like that's really good, but I think I actually like moose meat a little bit better. And you got it when you were in Alaska with your father-in-law.
Father-in-law, yeah.
So how'd that trip come about? Like what was the genesis for that?
Let's see here, January, February, March. Last March, my mother-in-law calls me. Actually, I was buying my bow. I was at an archery shop buying my bow that I shoot right now, and she called me and said, "Hey, I want to do a big birthday present for my husband, so my father-in-law, for his 50th birthday, and I want to send you guys hunting somewhere. Like, I want you guys to go on a hunt somewhere." And I instantly said, "Well, let's go to Alaska and shoot a moose." And she kind of paused and was like, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I'll make a call right now and we'll make it happen." I always wanted to go to Alaska. I went to Alaska the previous year, and duck hunted and salmon fished with my buddy. And so I said, we'll go to Alaska. So I made a call to a friend who lives in Alaska, and he owns a plane. And I said, hey, can we come moose hunt with you? His family moose hunts every year. They shoot a moose. Not everyone in the family shoots moose. It's moose is a lot of meat, so it goes around.
Right.
And it's just tradition they always do. I said, is there any way we can bum a ride? And it turned out that they weren't all going that year. I think some people were staying home. And he said, yeah, absolutely. So within a matter of, I want to say an hour, I'd planned a moose hunting trip.
Nice.
And so my father-in-law's birthday was in May, and we got him a backpacking backpack, trekking poles, a bunch of this outdoor stuff that anyone from Pennsylvania does not need. And he was so confused. I said, what are we doing? And I said, well, we're going to fly to Alaska and kill a moose.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he was, Did
he lose it? Was he like, are you kidding me?
He didn't even quite understand. He was like, are you for real? I said, yeah, we're going to go out. My buddy's going to fly us out. We're going to camp and live off of freeze-dried food and try to kill a moose. And so the whole goal was for him to shoot a moose, and I was just going to be there. And I was like, well, I'll get a tag too. My buddy said, yeah, you got to get a tag. In Alaska, you can use your moose tag for anything of lesser monetary value. Okay. So at the time, if you get a moose tag, which is one of the more expensive tags, you could shoot anything that has a value less. So like black bear was on there. Like you couldn't shoot a grizzly bear or like a Dall sheep or a mountain goat because those cost more. And so we flew into a unit that had you don't need a registered guide for in Alaska. There's a few units that you don't need a guide for. Mm-hmm. And kind of in short of it, the first day we couldn't get up to the hill that we were trying to land on because of the fog. So we landed down on this river, and we're down on this sandbar, this gravel bar, like a floodplain, and we're going to set up the tent. And there's moose tracks everywhere. There's bear tracks. I'm like, we're gonna sleep down here. And it was this first realization of I'm in the wilderness.
Right.
You can't just drive home. Right. You can't go to the store your mom's not here to give you a hug and tuck you in. It was this first realization of like, I'm out here. Right. And it's raining. And it did not stop raining.
Nice.
So the next day we hunted around. Finally the weather cleared up after the next day, and we got to go up to the hill, probably 8 miles away. And you can't hunt the same day that you fly. So as soon as you land, you can't hunt. Yep. And so we set up the tent, and we just start glassing this valley, and there's a moose over here. There's a moose over here. There's a bear over here. They were like, yeah, we saw some wolves over here the other day. And I'm like, I am out in Alaska in the wilderness where maybe someone's never been before, Yep. So it was just such a cool experience. My father-in-law ended up the next day shooting a 65-inch moose, 65 inches wide. So where we're at, the bull has to be either 50 inches wide at its widest points, or it has to have 3 brow tines on one side. Now it's hard to judge 50 inches out there when the moose is a mile and a half away. You're like, does that look like 50 inches? I don't know, 49 and a half.
Right.
So you're looking for 3 brow tines, and we hunted this moose all day long, and finally it's bedded down at 500 yards. And my father-in-law...
No, is this a gun hunt?
This is a gun hunt. Okay. Yeah, I had my bow.
Yep.
My father-in-law had a gun. And so this moose is bedded at 500 yards. And we're sitting there waiting for it to stand up, and all of a sudden I look in front of us, and 90 yards in front of us is this giant grizzly bear. To me, he looked like he was like 5,000 pounds. He was huge. I'm like, there's a huge bear. And my buddy Phil, who's an Alaskan, knows a bear when he sees it, and he said it was about a 9-foot-long grizzly bear, big boar. It walks over this little cedar tree, like a 5-foot tree. It just pushes it over and scratches its belly, coming right at us. And I'm like, Phil, shoot this thing. He goes, no, if we shoot it, the moose is gonna get away. I'm like, who cares about the moose? Kill this bear's gonna kill us.
Right.
So he goes, I'm gonna make some noise and let it know we're here. Right. I'm like, that's like the worst thing you could do. Right. You're going to let this bear know that we're here.
Dinner's here.
Yeah. So he starts making his moose sounds, these cow sounds, and it sees us. I think the wind was swirling a little bit. He caught our wind, and he ran out of there, but he ran right at the moose. The moose ends up standing up, walking to about 440 yards, and my father-in-law put a shot right behind his shoulder, right into the heart of this moose. and the moose just turned around and stood there. And I'm like, shoot this thing again. So he shoots it on the other side. Exact same spot. Oh, like, if you put a dot on a moose where you want to shoot it, that's where he hit.
Right.
And the moose took about 2 steps to the left and expired. And we all looked at each other.
Did that just happen?
A bear comes at us. I'm freaking out. I'm from the city of Seattle, or right outside of Seattle. You don't see grizzly bears. I'm like,
Right.
we almost died.
Right.
And Phil was like, it's normal, dude. Bears are everywhere. And now we got this moose, and it stopped raining. The sun came out, and it was just one of the most amazing days of hunting.
Right.
I'd only been hunting for almost 2 years at the point, and
Right.
and I got to be in Alaska to see this moose get shot, a trophy moose get shot. And it's not until you get the hide off of it you realize, man, we got a lot of meat, and we're
Right.
2 miles from our tent downhill, so it's all uphill hike. I think we did 11 man trips of meat.
Wow.
Yeah, it's no joke.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
11 trips.
When they say the work begins, the work begins. I mean, at one, you got a moose front shoulder, 120 pounds, a moose hind quarter, generously 150 pounds.
Right.
That's more than most average whitetails in Pennsylvania on your back.
Yeah.
And
At
you
one
got
time.
your gear, you got your bow, you got your camera gear, you got your poles. I mean, every step is grueling. And so we took 2 days to pack this moose out. And then you go, all right, let's do it again. And so we went out in search of a moose for myself. And
Now, you were still with your bow, right?
yeah, I had my bow. My father-in-law still had his gun in case something changed. And we called a moose in the next morning, actually. And he came into about 300 yards, and he only had 2 brow tines on each side. And I couldn't tell if he was 50 inches or not.
You didn't have your tape measure with you?
I did not have my tape measure. And it was stinky because he was in the perfect spot for a bow hunt. And
Really?
The wind was perfect. The hillside was perfect. And you just couldn't tell if he was legal. And you're not going to make that chance call and hope he's legal.
Right.
And
Don't need to be paying any fines.
no.
Yeah.
And so we hunted around. That was our last full day to hunt. And right at the end of the day, we kind of stumbled on a bear. And the bear was probably at 700 yards. Tried to get down into bow range, and we lost the bear. We couldn't find him. And my father-in-law goes, he's right there. And he had stood up in this kind of willow patch. And I grabbed the gun and got a rest and shot my first bear. It was,
That's awesome.
yeah,
man.
about 120 yards, and the light was fading, and it was a perfect end to a trip. We both filled our tags.
Nice.
Very, very rewarding.
Right. So, Alaska. What part of Alaska were you in?
We were north of Anchorage, south of Denali National Park.
Okay.
So, not like way out there, but still
Right.
farther in the wilderness
Dude,
than I've ever been.
Being in Alaska in general,
Yeah.
you're way out there.
Yep.
I was in Prince of Wales Island.
Okay.
Is where I was hunting, and that was probably the most remote that I've ever been.
Yeah.
That was. I mean, you can only get to it by ferry.
Yeah.
Or by pontoon plane. The only two
Yeah.
ways to get in, and I think there's 400 people that live there at the
Yeah.
time, like total. So there's no people anywhere, and you're literally what you were saying, where it's like you're walking places where you're like, there may not have ever been people who have walked here before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, type of thing, which is really kind of it's a little kind of an uneasy feeling and kind of a cool feeling at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's humbling to be in a place that's so big, and all of a sudden you feel small, and you're like, man, I'm a tiny little person on a huge world.
Oh yeah, it's like if that grizzly bear just decided, like, yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
eat you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like it's like that wilderness would have kept going.
Yeah, people say it's a small world. I'm like, God, go to Alaska and look around, or like, we're overpopulated. Drive to Nebraska or
Right.
something. It's like, well, we got lots of space,
right, exactly.
Not that we should fill those spaces up with homes, but
Right.
we got a lot of space that I want to get out to and see.
Yeah, I hear you there, man. It's like
Yeah.
it's funny because someone asked me at one point what they're like, you always seem to go somewhere different every year to hunt, like even just whitetails,
Yeah.
for example. They're like, it's like you never hunt the same place year over year. Like I'll hunt the same places in Pennsylvania and stuff like that, but the areas that I travel to are often not the same every year. Now this year I went back to a similar place in Ohio that I've been previously, but next year I'm going to Iowa, which is I've never been to before.
Yeah.
And I was like, because I like to just see new stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, not that I've mastered one particular area or anything like that. It's not that. I was like, I just want to see what other things have to offer. You know what I mean? It's like one of my bucket list goals is to hunt whitetails in every big buck state.
Yeah.
Notice I said hunt and not kill.
Yeah.
Right? Because I may not
chase.
Kill. Yeah, I want to chase.
Yeah.
I just want to go experience it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? See what happens. And if it's really good, maybe I'd like to go back a second time. You know what I mean? But it's like that's kind of like my bucket list is to do that. Definitely want to get back to Alaska.
Yeah.
Would love to do. We were just talking about this before when we were upstairs. It's like I would like to do a moose trip at some point. Because, like I said, man, that moose meat was good. And I'd like to fill the freezer with that.
Yeah, we brought home I think about 350 pounds and left meat with my buddy there as well. And man, every time people eat it, they go, "This is great. What is this?" And you say, "Oh, it's a moose." "Oh, where'd you get a moose?" "In Alaska." "How'd you get it home?" Like, put it on the plane and flew it home. We say, and I think I realized this on this trip, is we say no so much in life to things that we think are out of reach.
Oh yeah.
No, that's too far, or it's too expensive, or no, I don't think I'd be able to do that. Well, I think for me, hunting has really taught me that those things that are out of reach are not out of reach.
Yeah.
You just got to try a little harder.
They're only out of reach because you allow them to be. You know what I mean? It's like you've decided that it's out of reach.
Yeah. If you don't have time, well, maybe you need to get rid of some things in life to make time. I mean, when I started hunting, snowboarding was my life. I always got season passes. I was always snowboarding. And I realized, man, I got so much more enjoyment and fulfillment out of hunting. So I gave up snowboarding.
Yep.
My wife was like, "You're not going to snowboard anymore?" I was like, "No, I actually just got rid of my last piece of snowboarding equipment actually 2 weeks ago." And because I wanted to make time for something I valued.
Yeah.
If something's a little too expensive, change your priorities, change your budget, work a side job.
Yep.
And sell some stuff.
Yep.
And make it happen, because I think the more we say no, the more we get jealous of other people.
Yep.
The more we regret these decisions as we get older. I mean, the first year I started hunting, I got to hunt Washington, Minnesota, Kansas, and Pennsylvania. The very first year I started hunting.
It's a good run, man.
Because I just said yes. I got to hunt ducks in Washington. I went on a bear hunt in Washington. I saw a bear about 15 yards. I saw his head. But I had all the research I had said, you got to shoot him behind the shoulder. Mm-hmm. And so all my buddies were like, "Why didn't you shoot him?" I said, "Well, I never saw the vitals." They're like, "Well, you could have shot him in the chest. You could have shot..." And they listed all these kill shots. And I didn't know. And they were all upset at me. And then...
But you did the right thing, though, in that instance, because you weren't sure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, so I didn't make the decision.
Yep.
Man, I watched so many YouTube hunting videos, and some good ones, some bad ones.
Right.
Then I moved to Pennsylvania, so I drove across the country and bought a tag in Minnesota where my uncle lives. He sent me out back his house, up into a tree stand with a bow that my wife had bought that I was shooting. I could shoot well, but draw length wasn't right. The arrows weren't right. Everything was wrong, but I'd practiced, and I knew up to 15 yards I was good.
Right.
And Walmart arrows, Walmart broadhead, everything was just legit, dude.
Right.
And nothing wrong with Walmart broadheads. I'm sure they do fine. And then I moved to Pennsylvania, and my buddy who I was working with said, "Hey, do you want to come to Kansas and hunt turkeys?" In my mind, I was like, no.
Right.
Why would I want to kill a turkey?
Right.
Like, I don't like turkey. And B, how hard is it to shoot a turkey on the ground?
Right.
We went to this tiny little town in Kansas with about 98 people in it. And the first morning we went out, and he does an owl hoot locator call, and this bird gobbles. And I was hooked.
Yep.
I'm like, "You just did that one thing and that bird gobbled?" He goes, "Dude, this is nothing." Sun's coming up. These jakes, these small birds come up, gobbling at our feet. And I'm like, "Can I shoot one?" He goes, "No, we'll shoot a big bird." I shoot a tom later in the day, and man, there's nothing like it for me. Calling in a turkey and shooting it. I ended up shooting another one. I got 2 tags, so I shot another bird 2 days later, because my buddy shot one, then I shot one, then his brother shot one, and I think he shot another one, and his dad shot one. It was just a crazy trip for turkeys. We all filled our tags. And then I came back home, and that week that I came home, I'd never hunted turkeys by myself. I killed 2 turkeys because I had bought my turkey license, and before turkey season starts, you can actually get your second here in Pennsylvania. So I got my second turkey tag thinking that, I'm going to shoot 2 turkeys. I called in 2 birds, basically my second and fourth hunt by myself. And I killed 4 turkeys my first year. Now, it wasn't like I'm the best turkey hunter, but I just was in the right place at the right time, and I just got out there.
Right. And here I am, 0 turkeys ever. I've missed more turkeys. How do I say this? That it's more demeaning to me is what I'm trying to figure out. I've missed more turkeys than you've killed at this point, probably. You know what I mean? Just like, I don't know what it is. I'm turkey challenged.
Yeah.
You know, but that's the one thing I was talking about earlier. I wanted to mention earlier. It's like, you know, it's like we met, you know, and you were early in hunting, but like you were one of the few dudes that I know who just like in talking to you, it's like you would, in hunting with you too, it's like would never know that you didn't grow up with it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's just like,
it's my beard, isn't it?
It's your beard. Yeah, exactly. It's your beard. It's your beard and your hot toddy, actually. Yes. Yeah. It's but it's just like, dude, you're ate up with it, man. So it's like you're always learning about it. You're always like, you never say no, so you're always willing to try new stuff.
Yep.
You know, try a new call, a new technique, a new something. You know what I mean? And the thing is like what makes you different than I think a lot of people is that, you know, you'll learn something and then you don't just wait to like, oh, maybe I'll try that sometime. It's like you learn it and then you go and you apply it like almost immediately. You know what I mean? I don't know how many times you've called and been like, I just saw this thing. I learned this call. I got up this morning and I went out at like 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. before it got light out. And I went to the edge of this field and I just called turkeys, you know, before the season would open, you would just call and try to figure out where they were roosting and stuff like that. And you're like, I'm trying this and I'm trying this. And I've located this flock here and this flock here. It's like, and then I went to work and then I went back out in the evening.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I just kind of feel bad. I was like, cause that dude is just like, like putting way more out there than I am, you know what I mean? But you know, it's, I don't know, man. I always enjoy hearing your expeditions and stuff like that because you just like all season long. It's like we'll call or text, and you'll be like, "I'm in New York."
Yeah,
you know, hunting. Like
I got to go to New York last year and get one of my best friends from Washington ended up moving to Pennsylvania. Man, I don't know how long ago, 1.5 years or 2 years ago now, and he's butchering deer. And he wanted to kill a bird, and I found some guy mentioned to me once that he had property in New York, so I called him. I'm like, "Do you have turkeys there?" And he goes, "Tons of turkeys." And I said, "Can I go hunt it?" New York's a place where you can drive up, buy a tag, and hunt. So we drove up, never been there. We all bought tags, and my buddy killed a turkey first day, and poured rain.
Nice.
I think it's my Washington. Everywhere I go, it just rains.
Right.
So I had to get good rain gear, but. Yeah, so I got to go to New York, and we'll go back there next year. And for me, that, you know, not saying no also goes along with relationships. It's kind of, for me, where I'm at in my life is I have to weigh the relationship. Is this solely personal, or am I building relationships? Am I growing friendships? I think with you, I'd met you, and I'm like, man, this guy's cool. We seem to get along, and we started messaging over Instagram, which. I went through this phase where for about a year, I was applying for every field staff position, every, you know, quote unquote pro staff position I could with any company, anything out there that said field staff or pro staff, I was applying for because I had thought that was my next step. All right, I've killed some deer, I've killed some turkeys, I killed some ducks, you know. I had this checklist, and I'm like, now I got to get on a quote unquote field staff because I'm seeing these guys who are got this list of sponsors that you've never heard of, and they're, no offense, but they're not giving hunters a good name. They're not harvesting animals.
They're not representing the right way. Yeah.
And so I said, well, man, I feel like I got things going on, and I think things are going my way. So I'd applied my brains out, and one of the texts was to you. I'm like, well, he's got a podcast. Not that I wanted to like, no, I just want to get on the podcast or anything. But I was like, I should reach out because we are close. And you said, let's shoot bows together.
Yep.
And I was like, man, that's cool. And I never hung out with you. And you said, meet me at this train station and bring your bow.
Right.
I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go meet some stranger at a train station. If I don't come back tonight, I will share a pin where my car is and you can track me. And you took me to some gated, wooded location. And I'm like, this is the end.
Right.
And because I got in your car with you, we rode to the archery, outdoor archery range. And man, we shot bows all day. And that was like the kickstart. We were talking about hunting and life and kind of just all things outdoor.
Yeah, man. I mean,
that was like a kickstart to our relationship. And I really, it was awesome.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's for me is, I can't think of a hunting relationship, and I don't even call it a hunting relationship, or I'll say a relationship that was originally built on hunting.
Yeah.
Because our relationship is, beyond hunting at this point. Right.
Yeah.
But it's, I'm always just one of those people where it's like, well, let's just go do this.
Yep.
Let's just go hang out.
Because I could have said, man, I'm nervous. I don't know this guy. I don't shoot my bow very well because I'd only been shooting for a little over a year and a half at that point. And it was like, oh yeah, I'll say yes. I was super intimidated. And then I'm like, man, you're a normal guy,
Normal dude, man. Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah. I mean, it's always nice to, and that's the cool thing about hunting is I feel like it brings people together.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And, to me, that's probably one of the most important things that it can do. Cause I always say, man, like this, like I've had a good run with the podcast and like doing it and stuff like that. And, I get the biggest thing and the best thing that I get out of it or have gotten out of it, is just all the cool people that I get to meet and do stuff with, you know what I mean? It's like, and not saying that it's like I have some type of extra privilege or whatever. Yeah. It's just that it's given me the opportunity to create a relationship or a dialogue with someone who I may not meet. And that doesn't mean like, a Dan Enfald or like guys that people know. Yeah. Right. It's more of the guys that people don't know.
They need to know.
Right, that they need to know. Right. Exactly. It's like, cause dude, like you haven't been hunting for 40 years, but dude, you ground check a lot of animals. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you do it the right way and you're hardcore and you have a passion for it and you hunt ethically and all the things that are right with the way someone would hunt is how you do it. Then there's guys like Greg Litzinger, which more and more people are knowing about him, but still it's like if you're talking about guys who are on people's radar and those who aren't, it's like he's a normal dude. You know what I mean? Then Tim Bunau. Yep. I think I said his name right, Bunau. Tim, if you're listening, sorry I butchered your name. Benwo. Tim, you're bougie. If you're listening to me, you're bougie. But no, that dude he's a monster, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? And people will look and say, well, maybe he doesn't put a bunch of deer on the ground as someone else, right? But it's like, look at the places he's hunting, man. Yeah. Like, and he's being selective. Yep. You know what I mean? Like he's not just going out willy-nilly and arrowing the first thing that walks by him or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, and then my buddy Tom Titlow, he lives around here, which we'll have to hook up sometime and hang out. But he has a podcast called Relive the Hunt. Yep. Super cool dude. Yeah. He's from around here. Again, a guy that like great hunter.
I follow him on Instagram.
Yeah.
I didn't know who that was.
Yeah. He's a good photographer too.
Yeah.
Probably might have been how you first kind of found out.
Yeah, I think so.
But, good photographer, just awesome dude, so he's another dude around here. And then there's guys like Mike Perry that's out around like Erie, or Pittsburgh area. Like I met him through the Hunting Beast Forum, know, super cool dude. If anyone hasn't seen the monster that he killed this year in Ohio, that deer was, what was it? He texted, I was in Ohio hunting and he texted me and said, hey, it was this deer called Boss Hog and I'll try to have him on at some point so he can talk about it. But I want to say that deer was 8.5 years old. He started hunting him in 2012.
Wow.
Wasn't the only deer he hunted because I think he either never or only ever saw the deer one time in daylight on a trail camera until he killed him. It was the second time he ever seen him.
Wow.
Yeah. From 2012 to 2018. And he was a 2.5-year-old when he first saw him. I think I'm just kind of guesstimating here, but I assume it was a nice deer. He probably didn't chase him hard because maybe he wasn't a mature deer, and then as he matured, obviously he was on the list and wasn't able to catch up with him and whatever. But that thing is just all white faced. Rack is all gnarly.
That's
it's just
awesome.
like he's a big 8-point, just like he's a freak show.
That's awesome.
But yeah, man. I mean, there's a ton of like that's the coolest thing about doing this is just being able to meet cats like that, going to Toady Archery Challenge and shooting with dudes like that. You know what I mean?
One day I will get out there every year.
Yeah, why didn't you go last year? I forget why.
My wife's cousin got married.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a great wedding. I was there.
Yeah. You were there.
Yes.
It was a great. If you're listening,
It was great.
It was a great wedding.
Yes.
I couldn't have.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
The year before something had got planned, but this year I'm going.
All right, we're going this year.
Yeah.
We're going.
So,
I lost a lot of arrows last year.
Yeah, but go back to that. All these guys you're mentioning is, I think it is such a cool platform that they have, and I wish that I had gotten into being influenced by them in the beginning. Now I read a lot of books, so I read a lot of old school bow hunting books. My uncle gave me an old bow hunting book, and I read some Fred Bear books, and that's kind of how I got my start in archery. And my father-in-law is a big bow hunter, so when I started bow hunting, I said, well, this is the next challenge that I want to get into.
Right.
And I ended up killing a couple deer with my bow, killing a buck with my bow, and I realized there was no stop to the learning.
Right.
And that's what was exciting to me.
That's the coolest thing, man.
And I think the day that I get to the point where I go, I don't need to learn anymore, is the day I'll quit. Yep. Because
100%.
I have so much. I mean, we were just shooting here in your basement, and I'm like, I need to work on some things still.
Yeah.
There's things to tweak. I got into making my own arrows. I got starting to learn how to tune my own bow, because it's just got my mind consumed, And shout out to my wife. My wife is awesome. She totally supports me 100%. And a lot of people go, man, you don't spend any time with your wife. Well, it's not true. We have such an awesome relationship, and man, I couldn't be more thankful for my wife.
Yeah. Anyone who is, super into bow hunting, what I mean? Or like the cats out there that'll listen to this, you and I, John, Greg, like all the guys we were talking about, you spend so much time in it. Like if you don't have a good relationship, and I'll go even one step further and say, if you don't have the ability to create good relationships, it's going to be really hard.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You're going to have to give one up.
I actually had a family member last year come to me and say, Wilson, we have a friend who got divorced because he was too into hunting. And I said, oh man, I feel that's terrible. That's terrible.
Yeah.
You hate to hear that.
Right.
And they said, we don't want that to happen to you. And I almost laughed, and I was like, oh, but it's interesting. We can put out that vibe.
Yeah.
We can put out the vibe like we hunt every day, because I'll take a bunch of pictures and I can post every day. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, I am blessed. I can hunt on my way to work. Like I can hunt for a couple hours and get to work.
Yep.
And so, I get to hunt a lot. But my wife, comes first 100% of the time. And if something she needs to do, we need to make it happen.
Yep.
There's many nights I'm up late at night trying to get something done so that I can hunt.
Right.
Well, I got to do this on Saturday. How about I do it Friday night so I can hunt Saturday?
Right.
But the nice thing is my wife likes hunting as well. She loves venison. She loves the fact that she doesn't have to go out and buy meat.
Yep.
I mean, in my freezer right now, I have moose. I have bear. I killed a bear a couple days ago.
Yeah, we'll talk. I want to talk. I definitely want to talk about that because we haven't even got into deer hunting in Pennsylvania this year.
I killed 9 deer last year. My wife killed a deer. I mean, the goose, duck. I mean, lots of wild turkey.
Yeah.
So we're
got a freezer full, man.
Yeah, we got a grocery store in our freezer, which we've been blessed. It's definitely we've been so blessed with that. So
yeah, for sure, man. I mean, it's, I mean, you just find ways to make time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
the excuse of I don't have time. I'm not. I know a lot of guys out there are going to say that, and not to be rude or anything.
Right.
If you don't have time, my challenge would be is what in your life can you cut back on to make time?
Right. Or what isn't as important.
Yeah.
Right. Because Megan's the same way. It's like, part of hers though probably is too, is like, look, he's not in a band anymore and being absolutely insane.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like there's
glad you're not in a band anymore. So you hunt all you want.
Yeah. But the other side of it too is like, she also recognizes that hunting's not just the act of going out and trying to, as much as I love to put meat in the freezer and have, clean protein and stuff like that, there's also the part of it that it's like, man, like it's therapeutic.
Oh yeah.
I mean?
It's a like, true rest. It's
yeah.
a true rest to be out, not to sound hippie or anything, but to be out in nature, to be out in the woods. And sometimes for me, it's in between two houses because I hunt a lot of urban areas.
Yeah.
But for me to be strapped into a tree, getting to watch animals around your base of your tree and watching squirrels or whatever it may be, it's rest.
Yeah, it's rest. It's allows you to reset your mind. Mm-hmm. I do some of my best thinking, and when I say thinking, I'm not solving world's problems.
Yeah,
and it's not. I'm
not yet,
at
least.
Not yet. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go that far, but there's a lot of opportunity to do a lot of kind of reflection and internal kind of auditing, if you will. You know what I mean? And I don't know how many times I've worked through things that had been stressing me out or whatever. Absolutely. I just had like 4 hour an evening hunt in a tree stand to think through all the stuff that was going through my mind, and I was able to kind of like declutter everything and say, okay, this isn't as challenging as I thought it was. Here's what the answer needs to be.
Oh man, my son was born November 7th, 3 years ago.
Wow.
And it was, 3 a.m. We're in the hospital. He was born that night or the night before, and we're up, the baby's crying, and my wife looks at me and she goes, why don't you go hunting? We're in the hospital. And I was so stressed. I'd never been a dad before. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I said, are you serious? She goes, yeah, you're not going to sleep in here anyways. Just go hunt. I went out, I hunted, and it was like I felt like I got to rewind and go, oh my goodness, I'm a dad now.
Yep.
Then I ended up shooting a deer that morning, and I'll never forget that hunt because I felt like I got to press the pause button and relax and go. Because for those of you that are blessed to be a parent, you know, that first kid is,
oh yeah,
you're like, what is going on?
Is there a manual for this thing?
Yeah, like, wait, you want me to take him home?
Yeah.
Like, you want me to bring this crying baby to my house?
And you're going to leave me there. And you're not coming.
Yeah. So that was, I'll never forget that. Being up in a tree, literally I remember just staring out into the soybean field going, oh my goodness, I'm a dad. It's no longer 2 young married kids anymore. It's like we got a life to take care of.
Right.
And being in the tree really, man, it was so peaceful. It was awesome.
Yeah. No, it's one of my favorite things about it is just being able to have nothing around me.
Yeah.
You know, it's
except for your harness.
Except for for me it's a saddle.
Except for your saddle.
These days. But yeah, where your safety.
I didn't know about saddles or harnesses when I first started hunting.
I remember.
My father-in-law, well, when we hunted that one time, I knew about them, but I just was too cheap to buy one or wear one.
And I gave you grief about it too.
I have one now. But I remember my father-in-law was like, hey, go hunt this stand I have. It's a climber. And I didn't know what a climber was. So I skinny up this tree with this climber, and on my way down, the bottom slips out for me. And I'm hanging there 20 feet up in the air, holding on to this stand like, this is not good. So if you're listening to this, wear your harness.
Wear your safety harness.
It's not an option anymore.
No. So there was one season, that I hunted without one, and it was the most sketch season ever.
I love heights. I love climbing trees. So to me, it's just normal.
Right.
Clint and I got to hunt last year in this oak that has a big split about 15 feet up, and I hung a stand in each split, and he gets up there and oh man, he's like, this is sketchy. And I'm like, it's fine. He goes, where's your harness? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't have a harness. And then he couldn't get his harness around the tree because it was too big. And I think you ended up,
ended up figuring out how to get it on. Because I was just like, man, there's no way I'm going to hunt this stand without my harness. It's just really weird. I mean, it's one of those things where I personally have a really hard time hunting anything that someone else has hung.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I totally get that.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's not like, because I mean, I trust you as much as anybody, you know what I mean? But it's just one of those things where it's like, if I didn't hang it and know that it's hung the way I want it hung, it's like I have a real hard time getting into
That's like, why would you ever bungee jump?
Yeah, I'm not bungee jumping. You kidding? Did you see the guy on the hang glider the other week?
Oh,
that didn't clip in. It's like, no.
I almost had a heart attack watching that. If you haven't watched that, you look up this
It
guy.
gives me anxiety.
This guy goes hang gliding, and his guide forgets to strap him in.
Yeah.
And for about 5 minutes, he hangs on for dear life. And the whole time you go, he's going to die.
Yep.
That's what you feel like when you hunt someone else's stand?
Yep. That's what I feel like when I hunt someone else's stand.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
I like to hang. I like to hang my, which is nice now with the new mobile setup that I have, where it's like, man, there's no reason for anyone to ever hang anything for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I'll just walk in, saddle, platform, shimmy up, and I'm set up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
that
like
is nice.
There's no, so like I know you and I are planning to do some late season hunts this year. It's like we can hunt. You can hunt your setup and be in your setup, and I'll find a tree that's right next to it.
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
nice.
set up in that, and we can film and do whatever we gotta do. It's funny though, when you and I deer hunt together, we never see deer. All the times that we've hunted deer together, I don't think we've actually seen a deer while we were
saw
sitting.
a doe on the other hillside.
Oh no, that's right. We
one
did
time. But
yeah, you're right.
the first time we were in a blind together, and we literally just talked the whole time. We're talking about this and that and everything, and we're like, oh, we're deer hunting.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise why we didn't see anything that day.
Yeah, we were.
But it was still a good hunt.
Yeah,
I had a good time. But
and then I usually go out the next day and I kill something.
It's like clockwork, dude. It's like every time.
We took you out turkey hunting with your daughter, and I don't even think we heard anything. It was cold. It was
we heard a
miserable.
faint gobble really far away in the morning.
I killed a bird that following week when it opened for adult, and deer hunting, same thing. No deer. I killed deer the next day.
Yeah, we took Trevor out to turkey hunt.
Yep.
No turkeys.
No turkeys. Killed one
Next
later
day,
that
probably.
week. I went to Minnesota and killed one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was a fun trip. I got 10 seconds. I got to go to Minnesota and help one of my best friends build his front porch.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to finish the house before summer hit. And I was like, Minnesota? Is there turkeys in Minnesota? Look up turkeys I can buy, take over the counter. There was 2 days left in the season. So I found public land literally 15 minutes from this guy's house. He lives in Suburbia. And go there, call on a bird. Another hunter shoots it. It was coming, and he had snuck in between me and the bird, and he shot it. Never killed a bird before. No decoys, no calls, no camo. Kills this bird. Scared me half to death because I didn't know he was there. So I went out the next day. Bird was gobbling and called him in to 15 yards, killed it. Ended up being one of the biggest turkeys I ever killed. Had a double beard.
Nice.
But that was a great Minnesota trip. And everyone in his little neighborhood was like, you killed a turkey? What? Where? Like, it was so, you got to like go way out to kill a turkey. And I was like, I killed it just down the road here. So I found this little public land spot where you had to use steel shot because it was like a waterfowl conservation area.
Right.
Steel shot for turkey hunting is not recommended, but it's the only option I had. So it was a fun hunt. Got eaten by mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah.
That's their state bird in Minnesota.
Is that turkey?
The mosquito.
Oh, mosquito. Oh, nice. They got some big ones out there, huh? Nice.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know, that was Rocky that decided to chime in with the wolf. He was protecting us from the heater turning on.
Yes.
So tight work, pup. Good job. Yeah. Yeah, you did a good job. You want to get in on the podcast action? No? You want to lay down? You lay down and be quiet, son? Good boy. So now that we've gone through all the Alaska, all this stuff, we started talking about deer hunting. Let's go ahead and do a little deer hunting talk. So we're still in the midst. Well, I won't say in the midst. By the time people listen to this, season will be over. Right today, as we're recording this, is the last Saturday of rifle season. And I didn't even know this until John actually told me this. We were talking about it one day on the podcast. I just all my life had assumed that you couldn't bow hunt during rifle season in Pennsylvania. Had no clue that you can until like 2 weeks ago. John, he and I were talking about it on the podcast, and he looked it up and he was like, "No, dude, you can. I think you can."
Any more primitive weapon.
Yeah.
So what are they going to tell you? No, you can't make it harder on yourself. Like,
but there are some places, and I don't know which states it is, but I know I've heard people talk about there are some places that you're not allowed to use anything other than that shotgun or that rifle or whatever it is during that part of the season or whatever.
I can't stress reading your regulation book.
Oh man,
cover the last page, read the whole thing.
Yeah,
you'll learn stuff about your state. Like, I mean, someone told me something today I didn't know. I was like, seriously? It was great. It was great to learn. So
yeah, no, knowledge is power.
Yeah, hooked on phonics.
Hooked on phonics. So anyway, so deer season's about to kind of come to a close, at least
Yeah.
for the first act.
Yep.
Right, and then we'll open back up for late archery and all that stuff on like the 26th.
Yep.
And then for us lucky folks on the eastern part of the state, we'll run through the end of January. I think
Yep.
it's the 26th this year. It's the last day, if memory serves, because I know it's the very last like weekend of January, whatever that
Yeah.
falls on. But
The game commission gives you like a week leeway, so you can hunt late, and they just give you grace, right?
yeah, they're usually real graceful people. They're like,
Just kidding.
Yeah. So man, let's talk about your season, dude. Because you've been after one particular deer, and
Yeah.
you've had a pretty killer season thus far, man. Like, so well, first talk a little bit about like kind of some of the areas that you hunt. I mean, I know some of the areas that you're hunting, but
Yeah.
the folks out there, I just started this year hunting more around the suburbs this year with that piece of public that I've been
Yeah.
hunting or whatever. And then I did do some hunting in the suburbs with Phil a little bit.
Yeah.
I've hunted some suburb stuff with you,
Yep.
so on and so forth. But that is something that's really kind of newer to me.
Yeah. And that's
overall.
all I know.
Right. So it's like I just kind of, I guess, explain like some of the setups you've been hunting.
Yeah, a lot of the setups, a lot of places I hunt are access from people who have deer eating their plants, or just knock and ask, hey, I've seen deer back there. I'd like to shoot a deer for me. We eat it, and more times than not, I've gotten access. And that's a part of that building relationship. Some of my best relationships are from property owners that I have to hunt. And yeah, so when I came, we went hunting. My father-in-law took me hunting, and he said, hey, we're going to go hunt in this field. And I was like, there's like neighborhood right behind you. And he goes, well, yeah, there's a certain distance you got to be from the house, but you can hunt there. So it just blew my mind. And he goes, the deer will come out and we'll shoot one. And so my very first hunt, literally we got up into this tower blind at my buddy's property to hunt. And half an hour later, out comes this file of does. It was late season January, so all these does come out, and he goes, which one do you want to shoot? And I shot one, and that was my first deer hunt. And there's a house 300 yards in front of us. There's a house 200 yards behind us. I mean, for gun, you have to have a 150-yard distance, safety zone, unless you have permission.
Right.
And that's all I know about deer hunting, not the mountains, not anything else. This year was my first year going in the mountains. And to be honest, it wasn't as exciting as this urban hunting that I've been doing. The biggest piece of property I personally have to hunt is 55 acres, less than 60 acres.
Right.
And on that 60 acres, there's no woods. It's soybean field, pasture, and then 2 hedgerows. And so I'm basically hunting the neighbor's woods. So the neighbor has all the woods, and we have the food source. And now he has food as well, but ours is so less pressured from hunting. But I'm hunting between another house. They have grass, and they love the deer, or they watch the deer.
Right.
I can often see them looking through binoculars at me in my stand. I'm looking at them. I'm like, oh, they're looking at me, and I look, and sometimes I wave, and they wave back. It's kind of funny. But most of my spots all are less than 20 acres, all with homes on them. And all between homes, between a creek bed and a home, to try to find any funnel or pinch that you can. And most of the time, it's the house that is the best funnel.
Right.
And the road.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you've been chasing this one deer. You killed a hammer buck this year.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil that story, because I definitely want you to tell that. But you basically killed that deer on your way, or in your attempts to kill this deer you've been calling Captain Hook for like the past couple years or whatever.
Yep.
So
I haven't talked about Captain Hook or shared pictures because, like I said, when I was following this guy, and he said, the only reason I'm sharing this picture is because I killed him. And because I hunt in such an urban area, I know all the hunters around me.
Right.
And one of the hunters I know very well. And if you're listening to this, it's not the spot you're thinking of.
Right.
Or maybe it is. You'll never know. But right in our area, we don't have a lot of public land, so we're hunting all these tight access private property parcels anyways. And so I got a trail camera, and from Dick's Sporting Goods, it was used. Like, they had a used sale on these trail cameras. I bought it for $15 or something crazy. And I put it up. This was my first full year hunting, and I pulled the card. My father-in-law's been hunting this property for 10 plus years. And he's never killed at the time, he'd never killed a deer there. And He'd killed deer everywhere else, but not at this property. I pulled the card, and I had this buck. And I was like, wow, it's a nice buck. And I showed it to a bunch of people, and they said, well, it's a small deer. And he, at the time, he was probably 2.5-year-old. I ended up seeing him and passing him and ended up shooting a buck later that year. And that was not much bigger. But I said, man, that's not a very big buck. I don't know. I've never killed a buck, but I'll just pass him. That's what people say you should do. Pass a younger deer.
Right.
So I passed him up, killed my deer, which in turn wasn't that much older, but it was my first bow kill with first buck. And, but he had this distinct attribute about his brow tine. It literally hooked and almost touched his main beam. Mm-hmm. Like if you're looking at him, his right brow tine hooked all the way over and almost touched his G2 actually. And the next year I pull the camera and here's this buck with the same brow tine, and he blew up. And he probably went from like 110 inch to 125 inch. And for Bucks County, that's a big deer.
Yeah, for Pennsylvania, I mean that's a good deer.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Look,
not super wide, but tall and carried his mass. And so I said, I want to kill this deer. And so all of last season, I hunted him, and I hunted him way too hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember we were talking about that after the season, just like, like John and I do on the podcast, we have our debrief at the end of the year, what we learned, what we, you and I kind of do the same thing. And just, maybe we'll do it on the show now, you know what I mean? But we'll call each other at the end of the season and be like, man, I screwed this up. I screwed this up.
Well, and because we're hunting, you have to realize when you're hunting urban areas that other people hunt, it's not only you that are pressuring this deer, it's everybody else is pressuring this deer. So you're only adding to the stress of this deer's life. And I had 3 encounters with him last year. One time I was literally on my phone, and he walked by, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's at 25 yards, and he's walking in front of me. I'm on my phone. So I tried to put my phone away. He busted me. He was gone. Later on in the year, he came by chasing a doe, and then I think again I saw him way far out in a neighboring property. And I never found his sheds, never got pictures of him after that. Thought maybe someone killed him. And then this year, in this it was July, I'm sitting in my lawn chair in my American flag shorts, my American flag lawn chair, with the spotting scope, looking over this field, and out comes Captain Hook, and he had gone from like a 125 inch 8 to comfortably mid 140 8 point, which again for our area urban hunting,
dude, 140 inch 8 point period anywhere is a big deal.
Yeah, like, and people will go like, especially people listening to this go, no, there's no way. I got pictures of him. He's a toad. We were eating, and I caught a glance of one while we were. And that was last year.
Yeah, and he was a hammer then.
But this year, for some reason, his pattern changed a little bit, and I got no trail cam pictures of him, but I knew he was there. I needed a certain wind, and I got the wind. It surprisingly was opening day. It was a good wind and a good temperature. You don't always have to hunt opening day,
right?
But it was good, so I went in, and like clockwork, these does came out, and I looked behind me, and there he is at 150 yards. Just came out of this big oak patch of woods, and I'm so focused on this deer that I'm not thinking of anything else. And these does had moved downwind of me, and they never smelled me. I was hunting with the Ozonics this year.
Mm-hmm.
It was hot September day. I'm sweating. They were downwind for an hour. It was great. My rangefinder battery died. I'm trying to range spots to shoot this buck, and so I'm now trying to. I always carry an extra battery with me. I'm changing batteries. Well, I'm moving all around, and I didn't realize these does are watching me. And all of a sudden, I hear the dreaded stomp.
Yeah.
And I turn around, and this doe is like welling up to blow. And in the matter of 5 seconds, I picked my bow up, I drew, and I double lunged her. She went 30 yards and piled up, and none of the other does left the field. And I had another buck in front of me, and nobody left. It was like God had smiled down.
Right.
And this buck kept coming, and so he came directly below my tree, and I drew on him straight down. It's a very difficult shot, but the hopes was he was going to keep coming out, so I wasn't going to shoot him straight down, but I had drawn to be ready to shoot him, probably at about 6 yards, and all of a sudden I hear a sliding door open, and all of a sudden this little white dog comes peeling across this backyard, and he pinwheels around and runs right back into the woods. And that was the closest I ever got to him. He just needed to take a couple more steps, and it was game over.
And so being that close to him, man, I mean, you got a good look at him. Of course,
Yeah,
being
got
that
a
close.
great
And he
look
was
at
just like, what were the characteristics of his?
He's perfectly symmetrical, which is awesome. Besides his brow tine has got this crazy hook to him, but he's perfectly symmetrical. Carries his mass all the way out, and his the base of his antlers, the pedicle, like almost touches. Is that the right word? The pedicle, the
Yeah,
bottom,
I believe so.
almost touches in the middle. And I saw a deer last year like that. Somebody had shot, and it's just so cool how tight it gets in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And he was about 20-ish inches wide, and it just, you're like, I can't believe I'm looking at a deer of this caliber, and
Right.
I made all the right decisions to be in the right spot with the right wind, and he's here.
Right.
And it was like, I won.
It's Christmas.
I beat him.
Right.
But I just never shot him.
Right.
And I think it was 2 days later, I get a text from a guy that hunts not too far and says, hey, my buddy just shot a hammer, got a crazy brow tine, huge, biggest buck he's ever shot. And so I kind of was pretty depressed. I couldn't get a picture of it. No
Right.
one would say, I didn't know if it was true or not. And I got a good win for the set again, and I went in full hopes to shoot this deer,
Right.
not knowing if he was alive or not. But I also knew there was other good deer in this area, and it's an overlooked area and nice little funnel. Tons. The acorns were dropping like crazy in our area at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was like you could just hear them falling.
Right. Yeah. Sounds like it's raining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm hunting these acorns. The beans are still green, and all the doe came out. Nothing happened. And I don't like to stay till after dark. If there's an opening I can get out while it's light, not bump deer. That's what I've been doing at this spot, so that I don't. One time last year, I was in the spot really late because the deer wouldn't leave the field, and I didn't want to bump them. So I lower my bow. There's about 10 minutes left of shooting light, and my bow is about 5 feet from the ground. It hits a branch, and I hear like this snort.
Mm-hmm.
And I look behind, and here's this buck 10 yards behind me, now bounding out to about 70 yards. And I was like, that's an awesome buck. Mm-hmm. And it's some buck that I've actually overlooked because I've been chasing this other deer, and he's a great deer. And so I get my bow back up to my stand real quick, get my release out. I'm shooting a thumb this year, so I don't have my release aid strapped to my hand anymore. So I'm
Right.
fidgeting, I'm unhooking my bow, I'm ranging spots, and I throw a grunt at him. It's September.
Mm-hmm.
Did I kill him in October?
Trying
No.
to remember.
Yeah, it was the first week of October, I think.
I think you're right.
It's all mixing together.
Yeah, it is, because I was back home.
Yep.
And I went back home to hunt the opening weekend.
Yep. Well, he wasn't fully running. He was making a scrape, and I just decided, you know what? I'm going to throw a grunt at him. And I threw a grunt at him, and he came back and tried to get downwind of me, and I stopped him. And I had so much adrenaline when I stopped. My meh turned out to be a scream. I was like, and I scared this deer half to death. But I was already drawn. He stopped at the top end of kind of my range where I like to shoot. He stopped at 42 yards, which I'm very comfortable with. I shoot all the time. And when he stopped, he had crouched down low, which I did not take into account. Usually you take into account that the deer is going to drop your arrow a little bit, so
Right.
you aim a little bit lower. I put my pin on, followed through my shot, arrow released, everything was perfect. I heard it hit him. I heard it hit a little bit of his shoulder, and he ran off Mach 5.
Right.
And I looked at my binoculars, and you could see blood where I shot him. Then I could see part of my arrow broken off. I call my buddies. I call my father-in-law. He shot the biggest deer in my life because I've only ever shot one buck.
Right.
In the 3 years I've hunted.
Right.
And we searched. Blood was pouring out, bubbly lung blood. Looked like someone took a pint glass and just threw it everywhere.
Right.
And then it stopped. Drip, drip, completely nothing. And we did a grid search, and we never found him. And my heart sank. I was like, maybe he had a shoulder and it bled like crazy, which can happen sometimes.
Right.
And he still lives to see another day. Well, it was our first cold front, so it was nice and frosty overnight. I got out there first thing in the morning with a good buddy. And one place we didn't look, he said, "You go up this way, I'll go down." Basically, you go north, I'll go south. And about 5 minutes later, he calls me and goes, I found a buck, but it's pretty small. And I go, are you kidding me? So I race down to him, and I walk up on the biggest deer I've ever shot, and he's there laughing, and he's like, I got you, because I was stressed out. Maybe
Right.
maybe it wasn't the deer I shot. Maybe in the confusion I shot a different deer, which I know I didn't.
Right.
And yeah, this deer ended up being just the biggest deer I've shot, and definitely a huge accomplishment in my books.
Yeah, for sure, man. He's a great deer. He's Pope and young, you know what I
Yep.
mean? And killing a Pope in Pennsylvania is not an easy task.
Yeah.
Because there's not those caliber of deer running around everywhere.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like this year on my dad's place, like if you held a gun to my head and asked me if there was a Pope on that property, it's like there might be one.
Yeah.
Like there was one that might be pushing Pope and young.
Yeah.
But I couldn't say that with 100 with like even 95% confidence or 80% confidence. Like I think there's the one there that I was chasing. The one, what was he? I guess he was a 10 point this year, if I'm remembering correctly. He had the potential to be.
Yeah.
But his rack, like he had super long tines and a super long main beams, but he was just kind of tight.
Yeah.
You know, but so it's not a super common deer in PA. Like you're not always going to find those. Like I mean, I have a couple hammers in the swamp. You know what I mean? But like both properties back home, like the farms and stuff like that, I maybe between the two farms have one Pope and young deer.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know.
And it's amazing. Everybody asked me, where did you shoot this buck?
Yeah.
I had to go get some ice. I wanted to stick. I actually got him field dressed, got him on my deer rack, and I went to the store, put some ice in him because I had to go to staff meeting. So I'm in staff meeting, literally looking out the window at my car with this buck on the back.
Right.
And I was like, man, that's awesome. I did not listen to anything in the staff meeting besides what I needed to do. And everyone says, where'd you shoot this buck? That's like the number one question you'll get asked here, because everyone hunts so close-knit together.
Yeah.
They're like, well, maybe he was near my property or whatnot. The only reason I got to kill this buck, it's no magic sauce or anything, but is because I spent countless of hours scouting that property, sitting and just waiting and not hunting bad winds.
Yep.
Not hunting times where I'm going to bump a deer. I remember the very first year I hunted, I would get down from my stand and walk around. Like literally I would walk around and try to see if I could see a deer.
Right.
And little did I know, I'm like pushing deer all over the county.
Right.
And then someone said, well, you shouldn't do that. And so I started to research, why shouldn't you do that? And I started scent control, impact, just general impact on your farm.
Yep.
The place I hunt, this lady's single, and there's no impact on the farm besides when the farmer plants and harvests. That's it.
Yep.
So if I don't have to go in there at all, I won't. I'll leave trail cameras as long as I can and be as far away as I can to just scout.
Right.
And then when opportunity lends itself, sneak in there and try to be undetected.
Right.
That's the only reason I killed this deer. I mean, time spent behind my binoculars, trying to figure out where they're coming, and driving the block, like driving the mile around to scout other people's property to go, you know what, this is actually, as a crow flies, only 400 yards.
Right.
That's nothing for a deer to travel. So I'm scouting other people's properties thinking, wow, those deer don't have a lot of food here, but they have food here. They got cover here. They got travel here. They got pinch points here. They're going to make it to our property.
Yep.
And just time driving, countless times driving that block, driving that square. I guess it would be like a square mile, trying to figure out where these deer live and come from.
Right. I mean, it's the suburban, like smaller parcel hunting, man, can be tough because it's, you might know. So I'll just give you my scenario, right? So hunting that swamp that I've been hunting this year, good deer in there, pictures of them, saw one on the hoof, but there's a bunch of small private parcels around it, which I don't have any access to, right? So if they're literally not on that parcel, you can't hunt them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the part that's challenging with some of this small parcel hunting, because like some people will say, well, they only have so many places to go. And it's like, well, yeah, but you only have a place you can be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it is, there's a lot fewer places that they can be.
Yeah.
But they literally have to be at the one place that you can be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is hard. Now, within that area, it's like I can hunt a couple different setups, right? But if they're staying on the neighbors at this point of the year or whenever, because I feel like this property particularly transitions, at least it did this year, and I only have 1 year of hunting it to kind of tell, but like, all the deer kind of disappeared right around Halloween.
Yep.
All the big deer kind of took off and like never saw them again. I told you today, I pulled a camera when I got in there today, and I really went in and hunted it because I wanted to kind of walking in knowing that it probably wasn't going to be a great hunt, but it's like I need to learn what this property has to offer during the different times of the season. That way next year I'm hunting it at the right times and not hunting it whenever it's not going to be fruitful. You know what I mean? So I went in today, pulled the camera, and there was one of the more mature deer, and he showed up around November 23rd, and that was the first mature deer that I had on camera since October 23rd.
Oh wow.
So it was like they pretty much disappeared for the entire
Ghost
rut.
town.
Yeah. They didn't leave the county. I just can't get to where they're hunting or where they're living now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's a bunch of wooden blocks that are kind of all the different properties that the neighbors all own, probably anywhere from 5 to 15 acres, and there's probably 8 of them. So there's probably, I don't know, like probably close to 100-ish acres, maybe a little bit more that they could be on that I can't hunt. Yeah. That's private. So plenty of room for a couple big deer to live on. You know what I mean? So, but.
Yeah, it's a lot of these guys say, well, I want to hold a buck on my property. Well, if you got 20 acres,
it's going to be hard.
Yeah, I would even say it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, he could have a bed on your property. You know what I mean? But
and I think, there's a difference between having a bed and that being his home range.
Right, because his home range is going to be much bigger than 20 acres.
Yep. Yeah. And so, for instance, and this is kind of how smaller area is in the sense of where we hunt. I was at a wedding about 40 minutes from where I hunt, and the guy at the table behind me is talking about shooting a buck. He just shot a buck. This is at the beginning of the season. And I said, oh, that's so cool. And he goes, yeah, I hunt in this town. He names his town. Well, that's where I hunt. And I said, can I see a picture of this buck? He shows me a picture of his buck. He hunts as the crow flies a quarter mile from me. Mm-hmm. He shows me a picture of this buck, and it's a buck I probably passed half a dozen times. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, congratulations. Because it was a 9 point, but he was like a 2.5-year-old 9. A great deer for anyone in our area to hunt, just not a great, necessarily mature deer.
Not a mature deer.
I was really pumped for him. He doesn't get out hunting much. I couldn't be more stoked for him. But it's this kind of reminder to me is the deer you pass in an urban hunting area, your neighbor's going to shoot.
Yeah.
And
there's a high likelihood of it.
It's a very high likelihood. And so it just, the more you can lessen your impact on your land, the more opportunity you're going to have to shoot a deer. Yeah.
Because a lot of the folks around you also are only able to hunt that one area, whatever it is they have access to. So,
there's spots specifically I will not, and anyone listening, if you have the opportunity or the availability to do this during gun season, I will not hunt at all. You just let it lay, and it becomes this heaven for the deer because no one's chasing them with orange on. No one's trying to find them and whack them.
Yeah.
And they just get to live there and then become accustomed to it. They have beds there. It becomes part of their home range.
Yeah. It's funny because I know we were talking about it today, but I was thinking about going back to my dad's to hunt today, only because we do have food there at the food plot. And my dad gun hunts it every year one day. He hunts it opening day because usually he'll come up from the Carolinas and hunts one day and then goes back home. That's usually his gun hunt for the year. So literally it doesn't get hunted. Like I literally hunted it 4 days this year, opening day, and then 3 days during the end of October, and Dad hunted it once.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is last year I think Dad hunted it one day in bow season and maybe one day in rifle season. Not a single mature deer, barely any deer at all, from gun opener till all the way through like winter into spring. It was the weirdest thing because I made the assumption that like we would have a pile of deer on camera because we're not there.
Yeah.
No one really hunted it. Nothing. It was super weird. So I'm really looking forward to checking the cameras this year post rifle season to see what happens now that there's some food
there, something to hold them.
Yeah, because
if you don't have anything to hold them,
well, that and the weird thing is though, is there's not a lot of food around there. You know what I mean? So it's like I was like, I don't know that they're leaving to go find better food because there just really isn't much around there. You know what I mean? But I was a little, confused by that, or it wasn't what I expected. Essentially, I assumed that there would be a pile of deer there just because it's no pressure or whatever.
And I'm not going to say urban hunting is harder than people out in the Midwest or whatever. They got ag as far as you can see. It is just different.
Yeah.
Deer have patterns, but also I feel like deer have opinions.
Yeah.
And they go, you know what? It's Saturday. Let's go to Joanne's backyard and eat off of her apple tree, or let's go to Ted's front yard where he's got nice flowers. Like it just is kind of the luck of the draw. Mm-hmm. But man, when natural food is more abundant than residential food in a sense, flowers, bird feeders, corn that they're feeding them out back because they like to watch the deer.
Yep.
Natural food is always a bigger draw.
Yeah.
Acorns, green soybeans, like it's a bigger draw to those deer, and I think it'll always outweigh those other,
especially whenever the acorns really start dropping too, because anything that they can eat while staying in cover is their choice, right? Because they out of harm's way in those senses. I will say the one thing I've also noticed is just they will tolerate just a little bit more human intrusion.
Absolutely.
I've seen, like I saw a buck today when I walked in, and he saw me as I was walking in, and because it was so cold and crunchy, I mean, there was no possible way to. I was trying to be quiet as I possibly could, and I probably got within 30, 40 yards of him, and he took off. But he only bounded away a few times and then stopped and just kind of turned around to look. Yeah. Because I guarantee you there's people I know there's people who walk their dog through there because I've seen them while I was hunting. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm sure he's run into people before in a similar way. Their
lawn, dogs barking.
Yep.
And I'm sure that buck that ran away from that dog came out 15 minutes after I left.
Oh, he's like, that's Sparky over there. Yeah, I know him.
Oh, that dog. So I was trying to bite my ankles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, we covered deer hunting. We covered Alaska. We covered hot toddies. We covered how we've developed our relationship, which got hippy dippy for a minute.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like I shared more about deer hunting in my spots than I've ever shared. So I'm like, I can't believe I just said that.
Right. Well, the good news is
try not to incriminate anymore.
Right. Good news is we didn't give any GPS coordinates and we didn't mention any names of towns or streets. So I think we're good. But any last words before we close this thing down?
I would just encourage, I guess, anybody that's wanting to get into hunting, don't be afraid to ask somebody.
Yeah.
Ask somebody, hey, can I go out in the woods with you? Yeah. For me, I love taking people out during shed season because I can go find sheds, which I found a shed yesterday.
Did you really?
From last year, but I was like, look, a shed. And then I was like, it's already started. It's a great time to get guys out in the woods and just teach them, hey, see this stick? Don't step on it. Right. It'll be loud. Simple things that no one's there to teach you. You got to learn on your own, or if someone's there to teach you, it's great. But just ask somebody.
Right.
And if you don't have anyone that that hunts, start yourself. Find a hunter safety course, take a class, ask the instructor questions, and it sounds cliche, but YouTube is your friend. Yeah. You can learn a lot of great information on YouTube, also a lot of bad information, but there's a lot of great stuff on YouTube, and I've learned a lot from this podcast, I can tell you that.
Well, thanks,
That's why you're like, come on my podcast. I'm like, people will not learn anything. I'll just tell, I killed a lot of turkeys. But no, it's not out of reach.
Right, yeah. I think it's really important, man. It just what you were just saying, take someone hunting.
Yep.
Introduce them to it, help them. And if you want to learn more, right, it's like if you're looking for more and more information and you're unsure, there's tons of great places. Like, I know, I've hunted all growing up and stuff like that, but even when I started talking to the guys on like the Beast forum and stuff like that, I definitely was like a little intimidated because those dudes are hardcore and they're good. Like they know what they're doing, but like you won't meet a nicer group of hunters that are more willing to share their information at the drop of a hat. Yeah. And you'll run into that more times than not. So, if you have questions about things, and like, there are no stupid questions, there's just stupid people who don't ask questions. You know what I mean? That's kind of harsh, but there's some truth to it. So find a place like a forum like that or a podcast or whatever, and just reach out to those folks and say, hey, how do you do X, Y, and Z, and I
Yep.
guarantee you will get an answer.
Yeah, in my time of trying to get on field staffs and all those things, I asked so many questions to so many quote unquote professional hunters, and the amount of responses I got was amazing.
Oh yeah.
People going, do this or do that, or try here or try this or try that. It's almost humbling to go, man, I asked them a question, they answered.
Yep.
Because like I said, they're normal people doing hunting just
Normal
like you want to
people
do.
things.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
And I think it wasn't until I got out of this phase of like trying to be a quote unquote, like do it for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Now I just live to do it.
Yep.
And because I got shut down by every single company in the world saying, you've hunted for 2.5 years and
Right.
no, get out here. But man, now I live to do this.
Yeah.
And it's changed my family's life, being able to eat good meat, have fun experiences together. My son said to me yesterday, I'm going to dream about hunting with you, Daddy. He's 3 years old, man.
That's awesome.
That's awesome right there. But yeah, people can ask me questions anytime. You send me a message on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it may be. I'm always down to take somebody new hunting, as long as you don't share my spots.
Right.
You know? And yeah, like I can't wait to get Trevor back out in the woods and try to get him a bird or goose hunt this year for sure.
Yep. And we're even going to try taking old Dum Dum over there, wherever he's at.
Yeah, your dog.
Old Rockosaurus Rex. We're going to try to take him out on a maiden goose voyage and see if he just wants to go retrieve something. Because he'll pick anything up if you tell him to.
Yeah, or eat it.
Or eat it. He might do that. We'll see. We'll have to play it by ear. But before we shut this jammer down, dude, where can people find more information about you or follow you or get in touch with you?
Facebook, just Wilson McSwain. And Instagram, it's at Wilson.McSwain. And when I'm not sleeping, I'll answer your messages.
Yeah. And he's too humble to mention it, but he's a fine photographer too. So he's got great images on Instagram, on the gram, as they say. Cool, brother. Well, thanks for coming on, dude.
No, thank you.
It's been nice having you for the first of many, I'm sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank Wilson for joining. Be sure to follow him on Instagram and Facebook. We'd, of course, like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes. Leave us a 5-star rating and be sure to subscribe to the podcast so we can deliver each and every episode directly to your mobile device. We'd be super appreciative if you'd be able to do those two things for us. And before we shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. Wicked Tree Gear, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Trophy Ridge, Ozonics, Obsession Bows, Tecumseh Seed, Glacier Coolers, Ramcat Broadheads, Trophy Taker Rests, and Dead Downwind. And until next time, we'll see y'all.
Makes me proud, makes me steal. I could show you through the door. I ain't welcome anymore. A long time coming, if it all. It takes a special knowing to color for. Damaged heads, broken letters. Rationalize yourself in numbers, but I